the engine and transmission back in. What I'm playing with now is because there's such a complex structure and shapes and everything up at the firewall, so that we can unbolt the transmission from the engine if we want to, that it's not as simple as just making a flat piece and bending it around. So I took a nice long piece, 48 inches long by 2, bent it in half so that I can have use that as a reference, about an inch gap to the transmission, and bending this piece here, hopefully you can see it, with the flange painted, posted back, and that'll give me a surface to weld pieces to make up the transmission tunnel, but it'll also make it nice and strong. So we have to make sure we can get the shifter lever in, and the Prindle switch, and same thing on the other side. So we're just going to kind of keep playing around with this until I get the shape that I like, and then I'll probably make one more, probably somewhere back in here, just so everything looks nice. But as I make progress, I'll bring you along and show you. Well, I've got the rear one mocked up. I just put a little, 90-degree flange again, this time pointed the flat part to the back and that to the front, and then just rolled this down so that it meets up on the inside of that. And I'll just have this so it just clears the bolt heads, but I like it so far. So we'll just keep playing around and seeing how we're going to do things. We still got, make sure we got room for a shifter and everything else, but might put a seat in and see how it feels, and mock up the accelerator pedal and make sure we have good clearance. But right now I think we're good. So you have plenty of room for this piece. I always forget the name of that. And to run the cable back, you might even run that up through. But that's for the electronic part of the transmission, which you probably can't see. And then this is the vehicle speed sensor, so that'll be easy to route up and through just with the groundlet. But I like it so far. We'll just keep plugging along and see what we come up with. Well, I forgot to record a little bit, but we're making progress. So we've got, of course, this front passenger side all mocked up, and now I've got it where it goes all the way over the center part. So you see my Cleco collection is being well used, but I got backers between each of the joints, as you can see with the Clecos. So I think that'll make a nice strong weld joint, and none of you will see it when it's done anyway. At least we never hope you see it. That means the transmission or the engine transmission's out. But I've got some holes to be punched in this piece to do the spot welding, and I'll do the same thing, or plug welding, same thing. Plug weld all those joints at the seams. So we'll keep making progress, trimming things up, and I'll show you when we get there. Well, that, my friends, is a lot of Clecos. So I have the first third, so basically from the firewall to just behind the bell housing, complete. Well, Clecoed. So what I'm going to do now is mark up everything that needs to be trimmed, and I'm going to mark where I need to punch holes so that we can plug weld it through to those plates that I put in there, and start marking out where I'm going to put in the rib nuts. So probably weld it all together first, and then mark off our rib nuts, make it look really nice. But learned a lot, so hopefully the next section here, which might be just as interesting, will go as well. So I just finished punching all the holes and grinding everything down and all the things you need to do, and then I've sprayed the appropriate sides with weld-through primer. So these are some of the outer pieces, and here's a little box of a couple more of the outer small pieces and all the inner joining plates. So doesn't look pretty yet. Probably won't look pretty when we're done, but that's okay. That's what carpet's for. So we'll let these dry overnight, put it back together, and start tacking them together. Got everything ground and painted and prepped and holed, and so what I did was took this piece and the first little piece of sheet metal I had underneath there and welded them on the bench. So you can see how that one's got its one on there. And I figured that would be a better way to put it together than to do it all inside the car, and it seems to work pretty well. So, of course I forgot to grab the camera, but got the piece on the passenger side in, two pieces on the passenger side in. And I just finished welding in the piece on the driver's side. So now I've got the center section all welded together as a sub piece, and then I'll do this piece here last, and it'll just lay in there, and the little pieces of sheet metal that are underneath, those are already welded on both sides, so that panel will just sit in there. So I'm just fitting it as it goes, but so far everything's working really well. I got the last couple of pieces welded in. Nothing pretty, but hopefully I can be a little better grinder than a welder, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be covered with carpet and paint and everything else, so I'll grind the high spots off, but I just wanted to play around with it and see how it looked. So the next thing we're going to work on, yes, that's tilted, it's not going to be like that, is the pieces that go from here. So basically the part that covers transmission, so that covered from the engine to the bell housing. This piece will cover the main transmission back to the tail shaft. Kind of goes just behind the tail shaft. So I'm very happy with how that turned out so far. Can't see it, but it sounds very strong. So we'll just keep moving forward. It's the end of the day, so we're ready to clean up and pick it up tomorrow. Of course, I forgot to film the forming of the middle part, but I've got it all pretty much done now, so it's ready to weld in. All the plug weld holes are in. All the backside has been coated with weld through primer, and everything's clamped and staked in place. So I think we'll go ahead and weld this in place, and then we can move on to figuring out what we're going to do back here. Got an idea, but you always kind of play around with things before you figure out what you're going to do. So we'll get to that next. So I've been sitting here on the design stool doing a little concepting. So I was playing around with this angle piece, just extending it up from there. It'll allow us to weld into here, and I decided to run it flush with the strengthener bar, and we'll figure out what to do here, but that's on the future. So got that put in place, and now I'll see what I can mock up from there. I just finished putting the passenger side, mount an angle up. I just wanted something to attach the transmission tunnel to, so I took a piece of 1.5 inches and wrapped it around there. And I have some 1024 button heads. So I think this will be thick enough, 3/16, because we're not going to be structural with anything. So we'll tap that, and then I'll drill these out a little later. But that'll get us to the point of putting this stuff in. Welcome back. It's been a while since I've actually done any videotaping, and that is because I am trying to do a console. As you can see, this is the prototype. It's all been cut out on the plasma cutter. Makes it a little easier, but you have to spend a lot of time up front doing the design work. But I'm pretty happy with it so far. So what I've done is tried to make this level again. So in a sense, there'll be a door here and another little door in the back that tips up. And the reason I'm doing this now is I want to have some idea of where my wires are going to go, because we have to go from the engine compartment and from the headlights, and so you get the chassis harness and the engine harness, and that's all going to come down the transmission tunnel, go through that back bulkhead into where hopefully everything lives for the electrical system. Keeps it hidden and keeps it nice and tidy. So I have to do this, and then the next thing I have to do, as you can see with my cardboard paper there, template, is lay out how we're going to do the console. And I don't know if it'll show up or not, but I just kind of roughly bent a piece of sheet metal for kind of where the lower part of the dash is going to be. So I'm trying to concept this out, and I figured, well, let's put the big pieces in place. We can design the drive shaft tunnel. We'll finish up the transmission tunnel and put the shifter so that when you remove the transmission tunnel, the shifter and everything will come with it. So all you have to do is unhook the cable. So we're going to use all the stock components. So the selector, lever, it's a transmission, and a GM cable. So it's all factory. And then I bought some pieces and parts too. We'll make up a little short shifter because he wants a little short shifter, right in this area somewhere. So this is what I've been working on. Bolt into these, and then this will come off. Just a piece of sheet metal that's been around, and then that gives room for you to tuck your carpet up there, and if we need to, we can make a little piece of trim that goes in through here and just screw it into these spots. So we'll get it all from there. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I have to make one more piece, and then I'm going to weld this prototype together and see if I like it. So what I did was kind of model this after a ship. So kind of like the hull, so that'll be the main console piece inside and out, and then just made these little bulkheads. Yes, so we'll put hose or something around those to cover up those edges. And then I'll show you the little, they almost look like muffler clamps, but these will bolt down into that, and then I put holes all in through here to be able to weld this together. So this is the back part back here that goes against the rear bulkhead that goes into, so we can cut all this out. And that rear bulkhead, so we have plenty of wire or location area to pass the wires through. And then what I did was, this will serve another purpose, that we can put a hinge here, so this little door will flip up, and then we can put a hinge here and this little door will flip up. And I put some extra holes in here so I can put weld nuts in there, and that'll allow me to bolt it to the piece that will go up to the drive shaft, or the transmission tunnel. So the shifter will be up in here someplace. So far I'm happy with it. So I think I might remake this piece. It's a little short, but I think for what I'm doing right now, this again is just a prototype, but I might remake that piece just to make myself happy. So anyway, we'll keep moving forward. Oh yeah. So there's the, kind of see the side here, just a 5.5 inch diameter for all of those. Some weld nuts in the bottom. These are just bent over, so we can come in here and weld here, whatever we want to do. So that's just the concept for now, and that makes the clearance for the safety hoop for the drive shaft in the rear. So I hope you can see this. This is Fusion 360, and this is the rear bulkhead for the console. So just kind of showing you what I need to do. So what I needed to do was make this 3/32 of an inch longer because I moved it forward, But anyway, so what I have here is the two outside holes are to mount it to the, I call it the muffler bracket, and then the rest of the holes on this one are for welding to the, these will weld to the side, this will weld to the bottom of the console, this will weld to the side of the console, and that'll weld to the top plate. Of course, that is to pass a wire through. And what I did is in each corner put a little 1/8" hole so that when you bend this, you get a nice tight corner. And I can control my height here, so I'll bend this surface and the top one, the short sides, first. Get them right up against this surface, and then I bend these over the two sides, and I can control my length actually pretty well. Probably within 20-25 thousandths, and for a console that's not too structural, that is about perfect. So let's see what this looks like. So this is the rear of the console, and this is the one I actually moved it forward because everything's on a 10.5-degree angle. This one's a little bit short. So I'll take this out, and I've already cut my new piece. So this whole console right now is going to be out of 16 gauge, and I think it'll be plenty strong enough, especially when we put a top on it. I'll show you that in a little while. But this will get all bent up, and I can show you that real quick. But right now I've got to knock all the slag off and grind this nice and flat so I can put it into the bender. Yeah, I don't know how well this is going to show up, but just trying to line up the edge with the edge here. And then when we pull it around, get it about 90. We'll finish the rest of it up on the bench, but I'll show you what it looks like at that point. So I got everything straightened out. So on the one end we've got a 90-degree, and on this end here we've got about a 79 and a half. That's about what I need. So now we'll go in and bend these up and tighten those bends up a little bit. We'll be ready for the next step. And there we have it, one console bulkhead. So I put this angle a little bit more than I probably needed, but I can always bend that back. It's pretty simple, but that's what they look like before you put them in. So let's take the old one out and put the new one in and see how it fits. And there we have the new rear bulkhead. So it's fairly flush on both sides, just a little tapping with a hammer. I think it'll be fine. It's bolted in nice tight to the bottom. So we'll do another trial fit, see what it looks like. And here we have it. So trying to make the frame level to the car so that you can see that this surface here and this surface up here is basically level with the car. Now I haven't checked it yet with my level, but I did check it this way and I'm within a degree. So we'll tighten that up a little bit, but for a prototype, I'm pretty happy with that. So what I think I might do is weld these together now. I know I'm going to have to make a different top piece, which I'll show you here in a little bit, but at least I can weld this together, tack it together, get it mocked up, and then we can put it in here. We can always weld the mounts in, because now I know the locations, because I can measure them off the bottom of my prototype. So I can just, I did put those holes in for the mounts on the console sheet itself, and cut them out with a plasma cutter, so in the program. So I'll put this together and see what it looks like. Well, I think I'm pretty proud of that. That's the prototype. So I got enough room, about a 1/4 inch here to the bulkhead, 1/4 inch here to the bulkhead, 1/4 inch here to the bulkhead, and maybe a little bit more to the bulkhead. But that gives us plenty to put the doors on, which either way we want them to swing, probably this way. But I don't know how much we'll use the back one for, besides possibly you know, pulling wires in and out, and maybe make a little one, put your wallet in is about the best I can think of, but gives us access. So I like that. So I think what I'm going to do now is start concepting the front part, and if this is just a prototype, it's just a prototype. If it ends up being the final one, then we'll go ahead and finish it. Probably TIG weld all this in, grind those off, just make it look a little nicer, but of course we're going to have a cover that goes over the top of that here and here. So anyway, good couple days of work. So we'll go home, get a nap, and start over again tomorrow morning. I didn't have a ton of time today, but I'm trying to figure out how to go from console to the transmission tunnel. So what I did was made another duplicate of that front bulkhead, flipped it around, bolted it on, and then bolted it down to one of the brackets for the transmission tunnel. I haven't had a ton of time to work on this today, but we got a little bit done. So I made a duplicate of this bulkhead, and of course the mount, and bolted it on to the front of the console. And that was kind of my plan, is that you could unbolt it. So I have little weld nuts in there. They're just sitting in there now. Just they'll be welded later if everything works out okay. And then I made this piece here to transition, so it'll be the end of the transmission cover, but it'll also serve as the mount for the shifter. So this will weld onto this piece here, and then this is going to be bolted on to that drive shaft hoop. So this will come off, and then I have to figure out some little filler piece or figure out how to do it here. So in a sense you would take this out, because I don't think there's enough room to actually tilt this out with that being in there. So I won't be able to take transmission cover off without having to take the transmission out. And then that'll also, if we take this piece out here, then we can just pull the wires from the transmission tunnel itself, lay them over here, and then you can take the transmission tunnel out. So that's where we're at. But it's the end of the day. Time to go home and make soup with the wife.